When Elon Musk stopped his roadster for a homeless girl on a quiet Los Angeles street, no one could have predicted the chain of events it would set into motion. What followed wasn't just a life-changing moment for her, it became a story that resonated across the globe. The streets of Los Angeles carried an unusual stillness that evening. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, mingling with the faint hum of distant traffic, as Elon Musk navigated his gleaming roadster along Sunset Boulevard. Its sleek, metallic surface mirrored the city's neon lights, but his mind was miles away, tangled in the complexities of his latest projects. And then he saw her. Sitting alone on the unforgiving concrete near a dimly lit convenience store, a young girl no older than 10 caught his eye. Her fragile frame was dwarfed by an oversized hoodie, her legs folded beneath her in a futile attempt to ward off the cold. In her small hands, she held a piece of cardboard with a hastily scrawled plea, "Hungry. Need help." Elon instinctively slowed the roadster, his gaze fixed on the girl. There was something about her, a quiet resilience beneath her vulnerability, that made it impossible to look away. Without hesitation, he pulled over, the tires crunching against the gravel as the futuristic truck came to a halt by the curb. Passers-by paused, unsure of what to make of the billionaire stepping out of his cutting-edge vehicle to approach a homeless child. "Hey there," Elon said, his tone gentle as he crouched to her level. The girl looked up, startled. She tightened her grip on the cardboard sign, her wide, cautious eyes meeting his. "I'm Elon," he said, offering a small, reassuring smile. "What's your name?" For a moment, she hesitated, as if weighing whether to trust him. Finally, she whispered, "Evelyn." In that instant, the world seemed to hold its breath. Onlookers gathered at a distance, murmuring among themselves as they pulled out their phones to capture the surreal moment. Yet Elon's focus never wavered. All that mattered was Evelyn, the girl who had unknowingly shifted his world. "Are you out here all alone?" he asked, his voice more filled with concern than curiosity. Evelyn nodded slightly, her gaze flickering between him and the growing crowd. Elon noticed the weariness etched into her young face and the way her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the biting cold. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. "Let's talk," he said, his tone steady yet kind. "I want to hear your story." Evelyn looked at him, her wary expression softening as a faint flicker of hope lit her eyes, a hope she hadn't felt in what seemed like an eternity. For a moment, she hesitated, clutching the edges of the oversized jacket as if it were her armor. The jacket carried a faint scent of musk and leather, a warm contrast to the damp, chilly air around her. Elon, surprising everyone, including Evelyn, lowered himself to the ground, sitting cross-legged on the cold concrete. The roadster loomed behind him, an unyielding sentinel in the background. His unexpected gesture seemed to melt a fraction of her guarded demeanor. "I'm not here to bother you," he assured her gently. "But if there's anything I can do, I want to help." Evelyn's eyes darted nervously to the onlookers. Strangers stood at a distance, phones raised, recording the surreal scene like it was the latest spectacle. "They're watching," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Elon glanced toward the crowd before turning his full attention back to her. "Don't worry about them," he said softly. "Right now, it's just you and me." His calm reassurance seemed to quiet the storm of emotions within her. Evelyn studied his face, searching for any sign of pity or mockery. Instead, she found something she hadn't expected, genuine curiosity, a sincerity that felt almost foreign. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone was truly seeing her, not just looking through her. "What happened, Evelyn?" he asked, leaning forward slightly. "How did you end up here?" His question hung in the air, heavier than the chill of the evening. Evelyn's throat tightened as she swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "My mom, she got sick. We couldn't afford rent after that," she said, her words faltering. "I tried to keep going to school, but..." Her voice broke, and she looked down, tears pooling in her eyes. "I couldn't." Elon's expression softened as he resisted the urge to interrupt. He let her take her time. After a brief silence, she added in a voice so quiet it was almost lost in the wind, "She passed a few months ago. It's just me now." Her words hit Elon like a tidal wave. He couldn't fathom the resilience it must have taken for someone so young to endure so much. His gaze dropped to her hands, raw and chapped from the cold, and to the battered shoes barely clinging to her feet. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn," he said, his voice laced with genuine sympathy. That's a lot for anyone to handle, let alone someone your age." Evelyn shrugged, trying to mask the weight of her struggles. "I'm used to it," she said, though her voice wavered, betraying the fragile facade she'd built. "But sometimes it's hard to keep going." Elon glanced back at the roadster, its futuristic silhouette starkly juxtaposed against the raw, unfiltered humanity of the moment. Then, with a sudden resolve, he made a decision, a choice as instinctive as it was unconventional. "Come with me," he said abruptly, standing up and extending a hand toward her. Evelyn froze, her brow furrowed in uncertainty. "Why?" she asked, suspicion lacing her voice. "Because I think you're stronger than you realize," he replied simply. "And maybe it's time someone gave you a chance." She stared at his outstretched hand, torn between doubt and the faint glimmer of trust. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Evelyn reached out and took it. The crowd murmured around them, a faint hum of curiosity and speculation. But for Evelyn and Elon, it felt as if the world had narrowed to just the two of them. Slowly, she rose to her feet, clutching the edges of his jacket like a lifeline. Her steps were hesitant as she followed him to the passenger side of the roadster, each one tentative, as though she were stepping into a completely new reality. Inside the truck, warmth enveloped her immediately, banishing the sharp chill of the evening air. She instinctively reached out toward the heated vents, her fingers unfurling as they absorbed the comforting heat. Elon watched her silently for a moment, noting the way her cautious movements spoke volumes. Every small gesture seemed to convey both relief and disbelief, as though the comfort around her was too fragile to trust. "You okay?" he asked gently, his tone light but laced with genuine concern. Evelyn nodded, though her wide eyes darted around the interior, taking in its sleek, futuristic design. "I've never been in a car like this," she admitted, her voice soft and tinged with wonder. Elon chuckled. "It's definitely not your average ride," he said as he started the engine. "But don't let it fool you, it's just a truck, like any other." A faint smile tugged at the corners of Evelyn's mouth, the first glimmer of ease breaking through the heavy cloud of her circumstances. For a brief moment, it felt as though the weight on her shoulders had lifted, if only slightly. As the truck glided through the city streets, Elon gently steered the conversation toward her life. "You mentioned your mom earlier. Tell me about her," he asked, his voice careful, respectful of the delicate ground he was treading. Evelyn's gaze dropped to her lap, her fingers fidgeting with the frayed hem of her hoodie. "She was the best," she said quietly. "She worked 2 jobs most of the time, waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night. She always told us things would get better, that we'd find a way out of the mess." Her voice faltered, and she took a shaky breath. "But then she got sick. At first, it was just a cough, but it didn't go away. By the time we got her to a doctor," her words rushed out, as though saying them quickly might somehow dull their sting. "It was too late." Elon remained silent, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. He let her continue at her own pace. "When she died, everything just fell apart." Evelyn's voice trembled, the pain of the memory still fresh. "The landlord kicked us out because we couldn't pay rent. I stayed with a friend for a while, but her parents said I couldn't anymore. So, I came here. It's not great, but at least no one tells me to leave." Her words hit Elon like a physical blow. He had faced countless challenges, built companies, launched rockets, but nothing in his storied career had prepared him for the stark, unrelenting reality of Evelyn's life. She was just a kid, yet she spoke with the hardened resilience of someone who had been forced to grow up far too quickly. "What about school?" he asked softly. Evelyn's expression brightened for the briefest of moments. "I liked school," she said, her tone almost wistful. "Math was my favorite. I used to dream about being an engineer, but it's hard to think about dreams when you're just trying to stay warm at night." Her words hung in the air, a haunting reminder of how drastically life's circumstances could diverge. Elon glanced at her, the wheels of his mind turning. He couldn't change her past, but maybe, just maybe, he could help shape her future. The roadster eased to a stop outside a small cafe on the outskirts of downtown Los Angeles. It wasn't a flashy spot, just a cozy place with warm lights and the inviting aroma of coffee and fresh bread spilling out onto the street. Elon turned off the engine and looked at Evelyn. "Let's get something to eat. You must be starving." Evelyn blinked, her lips parting as if to object. Before she could say a word, Elon added, "Don't worry about anything. Just come inside with me." Still clutching the jacket around her shoulders, Evelyn hesitated for a moment before nodding. And as she stepped out of the truck, it felt as though she were stepping into the first chapter of a new story, one where hope was no longer just a distant dream. Reluctantly, she nodded and followed him out of the truck. The warmth of the cafe wrapped around her as they stepped inside. She tugged the oversized jacket closer around her as if afraid someone might take it away. Elon waved to the cashier, who immediately recognized him, her expression flickering between awe and curiosity. "Whatever she wants," he said, gesturing to Evelyn. The cashier smiled gently. "What'll it be, sweetheart?" Evelyn hesitated, her eyes scanning the menu above the counter. It was clear she wasn't used to being asked what she wanted. Just a sandwich," she said timidly. Elon leaned closer and whispered, "Get the biggest one. Trust me." That coaxed a small laugh out of her, and for the first time she seemed to relax. She chose a turkey and avocado sandwich, and Elon added hot chocolate and a slice of pie to the order. They took a seat by the window, where the hum of the city was just a distant murmur. As Evelyn took her first bite, Elon watched her closely. It wasn't just hunger she was feeding, it was the kind of comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. "Good?" he asked, smiling. She nodded, her mouth full, and for a moment she looked like any other kid enjoying a treat. But the moment didn't last long. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, as if she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly, setting her sandwich down. Her voice was cautious, guarded. "You don't even know me." Elon leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "You're right, I don't," he said. "But I know this. No kid should have to grow up the way you've been forced to. I can't change what's already happened to you, Evelyn. But maybe I can help change what comes next." She frowned, as if struggling to believe his words. "People say stuff like that all the time," she muttered. "But they don't mean it. They just feel sorry for me." Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "I don't feel sorry for you," he said firmly. "I feel inspired by you. You've been through so much and yet you're still here. That takes guts." Evelyn's frown softened into something unreadable. But there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. A small spark that hadn't been there before. "So, what now?" she asked cautiously. Elon smiled, his eyes alight with an idea that had been forming in the back of his mind since the moment he'd stopped the truck. "Now we're going to figure out how to get you off the streets. And not just you," he added, his voice gaining momentum. "But a lot of other people who've been forgotten." Evelyn tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. "How?" Elon leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "With a little bit of innovation. And a whole lot of heart." The following morning the internet woke up to an unexpected story. Elon Musk had been spotted talking to a homeless girl in Los Angeles. Photos and short videos taken by onlookers the previous night flooded social media, showing Elon sitting cross-legged on the ground beside Evelyn, his jacket draped over her shoulders. At first, the reactions were mixed. Some dismissed it as a publicity stunt, claiming it was nothing more than a billionaire trying to polish his image. But as more details emerged, accounts from the cafe staff, passers-by, and even a security camera video showing Elon walking Evelyn back to his Cybertruck, the tone began to shift. The skepticism gave way to fascination, then admiration. News outlets picked up the story, plastering headlines like, "Elon Musk takes time for homeless girl, a billionaire's unlikely encounter." And, "Musk promises change after heartfelt talk with young girl on the streets." Elon, for his part, had remained unusually silent. There were no tweets, no official statements, no interviews. But that didn't stop people from speculating. Who was the girl? What did they talk about? And most importantly, what was Elon planning to do next? A week later, the answer came. In a rare press conference streamed live on multiple platforms, Elon stood at the Tesla headquarters, a photo of Evelyn prominently displayed on a screen behind him. Dressed in a simple black jacket and jeans, he looked less like a tech mogul and more like someone deeply invested in a cause. "I met someone last week who reminded me what it means to dream, even in the hardest of circumstances," he began. His voice was steady but carried an unusual weight. "Her name is Evelyn, and she's one of the strongest people I've ever met. She's faced challenges most of us can't even imagine, and yet, she's still fighting. That kind of resilience deserves more than just admiration, it deserves action." The room was silent, every reporter hanging on to his words. "That's why I'm announcing a new initiative," Elon continued. "We're calling it the Haven Project. Using Tesla and SpaceX technologies, we're developing sustainable mobile housing units designed specifically for people experiencing homelessness. These units will provide not just shelter, but also energy, connectivity, and resources to help people get back on their feet." The announcement sent shockwaves across the world. Social media exploded with hashtags like #TheHavenProject, and "How are Evelyn's Hope?" Support poured in from celebrities, activists, and ordinary citizens alike. But there were critics too, those who questioned the feasibility of the project or accused Elon of using Evelyn's story for personal gain. Through it all, Evelyn remained the heart of the narrative. Her image, wrapped in Elon's jacket, her small frame sitting across from him at the cafe, became a symbol of hope and possibility. People from all walks of life found themselves rooting for her, inspired by the idea that even one encounter could spark monumental change. Elon wasted no time turning his words into action. Within weeks, the first prototype of a mobile housing unit was unveiled. A sleek, compact pod that could be transported anywhere, powered entirely by solar energy. The unit featured insulated walls, a fold-out bed, a small kitchenette, and even a Wi-Fi hotspot. It wasn't just a shelter, it was a lifeline designed with dignity in mind. The launch event was held in Los Angeles, not far from where Elon first met Evelyn. She stood beside him, dressed in a clean, new outfit that highlighted how much had changed in just a few weeks. Her hair was neatly combed, and for the first time, there was a spark of confidence in her eyes. "These pods are a start," Elon said to the crowd of reporters, volunteers, and city officials. "But this isn't just about technology. It's about restoring hope. And Evelyn here, she's the reason this all began." The audience erupted into applause as cameras zoomed in on Evelyn, who gave a shy smile. It was a moment of triumph, but it was also deeply personal. She wasn't just a symbol of the project's success. She was proof that change was possible. The first 10 units were deployed in Los Angeles, placed strategically in areas where homelessness was most concentrated. Elon partnered with local organizations to provide additional support, including job training, mental health services, and education programs. Evelyn became an ambassador for the project, speaking to other kids who had found themselves in similar situations. Her story resonated with them in a way no adult could replicate. Media coverage of the Haven Project reached every corner of the globe. Stories of lives being transformed began pouring in. A single mother reuniting with her children, a young artist rediscovering his passion, an elderly veteran finding solace after years on the streets. Each story added fuel to the growing movement, transforming skeptics into advocates. Yet, the initiative wasn't without its hurdles. Critics raised valid questions about its scalability and long-term impact. Could these pods truly address the deep, systemic roots of homelessness? Elon faced these doubts head-on during interviews, his responses always pragmatic yet hopeful. This isn't the solution to every problem, he acknowledged during a televised Q&A, but it's a start. And sometimes, that's all people need, just a start. For Evelyn, that start had already changed everything. She moved into one of the first pods, calling it her tiny miracle. With the stability it provided, she was able to return to school. Encouraged by Elon and supported by a network of caring individuals, Evelyn rekindled her love for math. What had once seemed like a far-off dream, becoming an engineer, now felt like a goal within reach. As months turned into a year, Evelyn's transformation became a symbol of what was possible. Her story inspired people from all walks of life to get involved. Donations flooded in, not just from ordinary citizens, but from unexpected sources, rival tech CEOs, world-famous musicians, and countless others moved by the initiative's success. The Haven Project grew, spreading to new cities and adapting to the unique challenges of each community it touched. During a follow-up interview, Evelyn was asked to reflect on Elon's role in her journey. She paused, her expression thoughtful as she considered her words. "He didn't just help me," she said finally, her voice steady but full of emotion. "He showed me that I mattered." And sometimes, that's all it takes, a simple reminder that someone matters, to spark a change that can ripple across the world. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell for updates on more shocking real-life stories.